The jury found this portfolio to be unanimously the best one. And I think for me what resonated a lot was, it started with the narrative, really, and this person's conversation about architecture and design being about a journey of discovery, and their work also being very much focused and centered on place and rooted in its site, which I think was very refreshing.
This is a portfolio that if I were looking in a pile of portfolios anywhere, it would get my attention. And I think this is very promising in the career of the author, in how the story is told, how the work is presented, and how one understands communicating architecture, because it will translate into good and better buildings.
This project reminds me of another lifetime I had. I was a carpenter up in New England as a kid, and carrying these 50-pound boxes of nails. We were building houses all the time. It's about 50 pounds of I think 16D galvanized nails there. So it really kind of resonated with all of my memories of making and building houses. We still don't understand how it's all held together. I think each of us has gone over and pulled a nail out of it.
Yeah.
They all seem to be loose there. I'm sure there's some secret in the middle, but it kind of speaks to something like the nail. You think of it as holding two things so firmly together, and yet that is so fragile in the way it's making. And that's what I think one of the beautiful things about it. It's all these strange juxtapositions. It's this heavy mass made of really light things. We have, it's got the iconography of the nail, but yet it's taken on now this amorphous, almost organic form. It's delicate, but nails are brutal.
It's tension, it's compression, it has so many opposites.
I think this is one of the most incredible things I saw all day. Exceptional.
A lot of restraint to just use one material and do something just totally beautiful.
I want it in my collection.
Yeah, is it for sale? Our committee thought this project was just genius. I mean, obviously we loved it for its humanitarian mission. This designer found an underutilized space in the city and is addressing the homeless population crisis with this concept. And the best part that we all thought about this project is that it's entirely achievable. We were so impressed with not only the conceptual idea, but the execution of this conceptual idea. The board was put together beautifully.
It was one of the few projects that we saw in this category that really had a conceptual basis. It had some amount of research behind it. And you could say, because it's such a simple project, it's easy to do that. But at the same time, I think it's still difficult to bring something so meaningful to bear, whether it's simple or a complex project. I joked that it was Vitruvian. It's everything architecture should be. It had commodity. We could see how you could actually make these fairly inexpensively. It exhibits firmness. We can believe it stands up and it can be made, and it has delight. It has some type of meaning and resonance. It has that simple, iconic house form.
They told us that there's over 43,000 spaces, and if we occupied a certain X%, we could be housing X number of homeless people. I mean, the data was there, but in a very simple, direct way, without overloading us with information.
4,000 beds that provided.
Yeah, and we just want to see it get built. That's the next step for this project.
Right. Where's the? We need incentive for people for developers to actually do it.
From across the room, I could look at this and say, this is an idea. There's something going on here, and it is a very clear concept.
Well, I think it was the sections really that
Yeah.
grabbed us. I mean, it's so much of architecture of late is just rectilinear and extruded. And this was really sculpted. These spaces that
But
are
it's
like
not- it's not-
bodies of space inside a cube building.
It's not sculpted form the way so much architecture is today. It is sculpted space, right? So it is completely internal. And the term poché is so appropriate in this project, right? I mean, it is poché when you look at this in plan and in section, and the intermingling of sacred public space and private residential space is a fairly unique combination. And in this case, is well presented and really exciting.
This project really impressed the entire jury. I think it was unanimous that this was the winner off the bat. The other aspect of it was the creative use of materials and the thought process that went into that, and the steel columns and the blackened steel or weathered steel rain screen cladding, and how that just kind of melts into the surrounding forest. Yet when you're on the inside of the space, the birch plywood harkens back to the nature and the outside trees that surround this space.
Yeah, they showed a lot of restraint with a very limited material palette, which for such a small little building was so important. Just the birch plywood, floor, ceiling, walls, shelving, steel on the exterior, and wood decking. They really kept it to those three materials plus the glass. Walking through the woods, you don't want to see built forms in the landscape. You want to be with nature. So that's, again, I think part of the success of this project is that they almost disappear.
Of how they're elevated off the ground, almost like they're suspended in the trees themselves. And so it creates this, if I was walking in the forest and I came across these, it would be these little, almost like the Ewok forest, these little cabins suspended in the trees to some extent. And so it's playful, and it's like kind of like a really cool treehouse to some extent.
The thing that struck me, I mean, it's capturing that view. I think so often, that's the dream of a project, is to have something that you can really capture and do it successfully.
And I think the full integration of the structure and the space, so just the way the lighting is tied into the trusses of the roof, and there's nothing that's excessive, and it's really well edited.
And I think the craft is evident,
Masterful.
throughout, and you really feel like you're arriving in Wyoming. I think it has that whole sense of arrival and connection to the existing airport.
You know what I really appreciate about this project is I think it's one of the first ones we saw today that has a clearly executed and just beautifully articulated tectonic to it. The tensile truss and the concrete wall, they're all just logically used. Right.
So I think
It looks like a good place to hang out and
yeah,
leave
it
your
does.
luggage.
It does.
Yeah.
I think for me, I looked at this project for about 30 seconds and I completely understood the concept, which to me is a hallmark of an excellent design as well as a great presentation. Fundamentally, retail is about crafting a great customer experience. And I think by and large, retail in America is very commercialized and corporate. And this is really a well-curated, handcrafted experience, which I think would be really appealing to the younger buyers who would be attracted to these kinds of products, the sneakers. So I completely agree. I love the way that the simple form and the clarity of the concept is clear through the imagery and through the diagramming throughout the entire presentation.
the attention to detail and the craftsmanship of the plywood and how the shelving integrates into that, and the fabrication of the steel framework that supports all the other pieces in the space. So it's just well thought out and well done.
But this project is really at its core has that strength because it's clear and it's very thoughtful, and you can understand it completely very simply, which to me is the sense of transparency is very good because it kind of exudes it through the concept because the project is very simple and clear at the same time. So I think the communication of it reinforces the concept, which is really, to me, the utmost compliment.
What attracted us about this was there was this really great balance between the preservation and restoration piece and then this new piece that it was married with.
From the street, it has this one objectified kind of understated charm to it, but once you go inside, it kind of has this really sort of old feel, like it's always been there, even though it's an older structure that's been remodeled and adapted in a lot of different ways. It fits like an old glove, and it has this wonderful charm to it, and it's one of my favorite places to visit in Aspen for that reason.
I think one of the nice things about the interior, though, is it's unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just looking at the scale of that mining cottage
Yeah.
from the outside, you know, I don't expect the space to feel so expansive inside.
I think for me there's this interesting duality between the simplicity of the exterior and the detailing, and the inside is actually very complex, and there's a lot of decoration, a lot of things going on in the best sense of it, because I didn't really pick up on anything in particular. It's just this sort of marriage of great lighting, great structure, furnishings, and of course the people, which is really what makes it special. Is the people go there and they activate the space, and it kind of complements the entire design.
So I think this is a really interesting piece of furniture and nicely developed, but to see a transformative piece of furniture, something that is a coffee table and then turns into chairs and does it so elegantly is pretty unusual.
Right, it's sculptural in the way that it pulls apart, and I also like the use of materials, how the exterior, the cube of wood, is this light wood material, whereas the inner pieces of the wood is dark, so it's playing off the light and dark contrast.
It makes it more convincing when it's closed. It is a perfect square form.
Sure.
And the detailing of the way it's built, the corners are really elegantly done, and this is a very inventive piece of furniture.
Dominic definitely displayed a commitment to the profession and a commitment to great design, which we all were under the consensus of that he was the natural winner for the award this year. But what really stood out to us the most was the commitment to design excellence, which as a group of jurors we thought was the most important aspect of the 3 criteria pieces that were part of the submission requirements.
The work that Dominic submitted, it was very compelling and also clear about his involvement in the projects.
His strong suit is his design eye and composition of how he looks at projects and materialities, and his obviously his ability to lead project teams to create successful projects. The strongest aspect of Dominic's submission was definitely his design work, most notably the Eastside Human Service Building that's located in North Denver for the city and county of Denver. It's just a real clear Partian diagram, not only plan but section, and the use of materials and the way that the roof folds and
Yeah, the diagram of his roofs and the roofs and how they are creating clear story windows that dumps light into the interior spaces, the use of color, and just the overall scale and form of the building seemed very welcoming and would be beneficial and I'm sure a great experience for most everybody that uses the building.
Dominic's leadership and his commitment to R&L as a firm is very evident in his submission, and I think that it's important to be able to foster and mentor people within the firm, which he is doing at R&L is impressive, and that's something that we all looked at. And also his mentorship and his contributions to CU Denver. Dominic has shown in his submission that he is becoming a future leader within R&L through his mentorship and his commitment to the firm, not only to R&L, but also his commitment and mentorship at CU Denver as being guest lecturer, speaker, juror for different studios, etc.
We look forward to Dominic being involved with the AIA more. So I think we're looking forward to following Dominic in the future.